Today's lesson is on adding and subtracting fractions. So make sure you title your notes. And then let's take a look at the first example. Here we are adding fractions with like denominators. Remember that the denominator is the number on the bottom of the fraction. So in our first fraction, 1/8, the denominator is 8, and in our second fraction, 3/8, the denominator is also 8. When you have a common denominator, when the number is the same at the bottom of the fraction and you're adding, all you need to do is add the numerators. So 1 plus 3 is 4, and then we keep the denominator the same, which is 8. So our fraction is 4/8. But be careful here, you're not done yet, because you can simplify this fraction. So you need to ask yourself, 4 and 8 are both divisible by what number? You could do 2, but then you'd have to simplify again, so I'll just divide by 4 right away, since they're both divisible by 4, and then that fraction would simplify to 1/2. Since 1/2 cannot be simplified any further, that's my final answer. Now in the next example, we're subtracting fractions with like denominators. So if I look at the denominator here, it's x for both fractions, 9 over x minus 7 over x. Just because it's a variable doesn't change any of the rules. It's the same denominator, so all we need to do is subtract the numerators, since this is a subtraction problem. So 9 minus 7 would be 2. You just keep the denominator the same, so it's 2 over x. Now 2 is a number, x is a letter, therefore it can't be simplified any further, so that's the final answer. Alright, now here we go. Simplifying fractions with unlike denominators. When the denominator is different, 1/8, we have an 8 in the denominator, and 5/6, we have a 6 in the denominator, we need to rewrite it using a common denominator, meaning the number at the bottom of the fraction has to be the same for both. When you're adding and subtracting, the denominator has to be the same in order to add and subtract fractions. So, if you know your multiplication facts well, you can go through the multiples of 8, go through the multiples of 6, and find a number that they have in common. Or you could just multiply 8 times 6, which would be 48, because you know that 48 is a multiple of 8 and it's a multiple of 6. Now what we need to do is get both of our denominators to be 48. Okay? So we want 8 to change into a 48, and we want 6 to change into a 48. First, let's just look at that 8. How can we make 8 change to 48? Well, obviously, we just did it. We need to multiply by 6. But remember, to keep this fraction equivalent, whatever we do in the denominator, we've got to do the same thing in the numerator. So since I multiplied by 6 in the denominator, I'll multiply by 6 in the numerator. Okay, that's what I did right here. So we have our fraction 1/8. To get this to be 48, I needed to multiply by 6. So I did the same thing in the numerator, multiplied by 6 here. Okay, now let's look at 5/6. We want the 6 to change into a 48. So how do I make 6 change to 48? Well, I need to multiply by 8. So remember, you need to do the same thing in the numerator and the denominator. So since I had to multiply by 8 in the denominator, I also have to multiply by 8 in the numerator. Okay, now let's simplify both of these. So let's look back at this fraction, 1 times 6 over 8 times 6. Right here, 1 times 6 would be 6, and 8 times 6 would be 48. So I changed that fraction to 6 over 48. 1/8 is the same as 6 over 48. I know it's the same because I multiplied by 6 in the numerator and the denominator, so I know that that's an equivalent fraction. Now let's simplify the next fraction. We had 5 times 8 over 6 times 8. Well, 5 times 8 is 40, and 6 times 8 is 48. Again, 5/6 is equivalent to 40 over 48. I just had to change those fractions so that I had the same denominator in both fractions. Now that I have 6 over 48 minus 40 over 48, Now I have the same denominator, so all I need to do, like you've already learned, is subtract the numerators. So 6 minus 40 would be negative 34. And since the denominator is the same, I just keep it the same in the answer, 48. Again, you need to simplify this. And so since both of them are divisible by 2, you can take negative 34 divided by 2 and get negative 17. 48 divided by 2 is 24, and that cannot be simplified any further, so that's the final answer. That's it for today, guys. Bye.